Welcome everyone to another great webinar we have for you in store today. Title is Close More Global Deals with Sales Tested Go-to-Market Tactics. And before I introduce our experts on this topic for today, I'm just going to cover a couple of housekeeping items. So we are producing this on a web-based platform. So if you experience any issues while watching this webinar, please let us know utilizing the Q&A chat box. We will do the best that we can to help alleviate any of those issues for you. This webinar is being recorded, so you will receive that recording within 48 hours after we conclude today. We've also surfaced up a resource list of items that we will share with you and that are relating to the content that we're covering today. Last housekeeping item is ZoomInfo is a publicly traded company. This presentation may contain forward-looking statements. Any buying decisions you make should be made based only upon currently available products and offerings. This is our complete safe harbor statement here displayed for your review, but we've also, like I mentioned, added it in the resource list. All right, so our speakers for today, very exciting to have them both. We have ZoomInfo CEO and co-founder Henry Schuck, and we also have Ray Mariano, our Senior VP of International Revenue. Thank you both for joining us today.
Of course, we're excited to be here, Rebecca.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Okay, Ray, let's kick things off. What are some common yet underrated characteristics that separate a winning go-to-market strategy from the rest of the pack?
Yeah, so coming up with a go-to-market strategy is, it's one of the most important exercises a company is going to go through. And many companies come up with their go-to-market strategy based on, what they might think or what they might feel. And when you do that, it's a little bit like playing the lottery. You could hit it big, but when you're gambling, most people don't typically come out on top. So I think it should be approached, a lot more like an investment. Most people wouldn't make an investment just on what they think or feel. That's factored into it. But they'd do research, they'd look to validate those thoughts or feelings or maybe disprove them. And they wouldn't look at just one source, they'd look at multiple sources. And when you look at an investment that way, you feel a lot more confident about your chances of being successful. And that's what a go-to-market strategy is, or what it should be. It's one of the most important decisions and investments that you're ultimately going to make into your company. You're building a strategy that's going to determine where both you and your team, focus in your time and effort. And that's the most valuable investment you make into your business. That's time that you can't get back. So how do you go beyond just what you think and what you feel when you're determining maybe the right industries, countries, regions, segments that you should focus in on? How do you determine the right personas or maybe the right roles to focus on selling to? And then how do you validate, the right messaging for the right region or buyer or segment? I think it starts in with, having a focus. Let's say that you sell a product or service that's, for better patient engagement in the healthcare space. If you don't focus in, what you could say is, our total addressable market is, any healthcare entity that has a medical provider. That's a massive universe to sell to. And maybe that's the case. That's very rare though, even for the largest companies. Now you may get there, but what's your total addressable market today, right now? Where should you and your team be focusing your time and your effort? So there's a lot of things to think about. Is your product or service better set up to support certain specialties? Maybe family practice and pediatrics, but not as much for, orthopedics and retina surgery. Now, if that's the case, you want to focus in on the specialties that you excel at today. And if you see an opportunity, maybe in the ortho or retina surgery space, you want to develop your product to better support that in the future. There's then, you got to think about size. Is your company better positioned to support, maybe large medical centers or smaller independent medical practices? Now, you might tell me, Ray, my product is set up to support both, but when you look at the competitive landscape, maybe your competitors are focused in that smaller independent medical space and the larger hospitals, but you identify that the community hospital space is actually an underserved space that you can focus on early. And then you need to think about location as well. Are there specific countries in Europe or regions in the UK that your company is better positioned to support, maybe based off of different requirements or regulations? So I think all of these are extremely important factors when you're trying to nail down that focused total addressable market.
Yeah, I think I would add a couple things. One, and all of that is right. I think when you get out, like when we first started ZoomInfo, I knew that our best targets were kind of those companies between 200 and 500 employees that were in software and technology. I knew those companies could transact quickly. They could transact at a high ACV. We were winning there. And so we knew we could navigate that sales cycle. There wasn't a long enterprise security review. So I knew we could win there and we could win quickly. Could we win in the enterprise? Yes. If an enterprise lead came in, were we going to work it really hard and win there too? Yes. But when we're putting our resources to work out in the market to do marketing, to do SDR campaigns and call campaigns, I wanted to get the most out of those resources. And so I could keep them laser focused on that tight band, 200 to 500 employees in technology and software in the United States or in the United Kingdom that were growing a certain percentage that had received funding. I knew every minute of time spent behind those companies and the VPs of sales and marketing at those companies was going to net me a more positive result than anywhere else. Now, all of this, by the way, starts with some sort of thesis, some sort of hypothesis for what's going to work and what's not. You don't start with the whole mountain of data that helps you understand, or you often don't start with that. You start with like, what is your gut feeling? And the key there is to go and have your gut feeling to have your gut feeling come out and say, look, I think it's companies of this size, in this location, in this segment, in this industry, growing this fast. I think it's companies, it's people at those companies who are VPs and directors and C-level executives in IT or patient management or patient experience. And then being able to take that data, build an audience, and then go test and look at the results that come back to tweak and tweak and tweak. I think that's the real important piece coming out of that. And then you're going to have data that tells you, you know what? It's actually companies that look like exactly like this, and buyer personas at companies that look exactly like that. And at some point you can go, look, the next growth segment can be a little less efficient, but I know exactly how efficient it's going to be. I know exactly how to line up the resources there. And so use the data that you're going to create in your go-to-market motion once you start getting out there to refine that strategy.
Awesome points by both of you. Thank you. Okay, right. The beginning of any go-to-market plan starts with closely examining your target markets. So how do you recommend businesses uncover opportunities within their total addressable market and know how and when to engage with active buyers?
Yeah, no, great question, Rebecca. So, now that you've determined the right total addressable market to focus in on serving, now what you got to identify, what are the triggers that tell you now is the right time to reach out to a possible buyer, and what's the right message that you should be leading with? Because even once you narrow the focus down of your total addressable market, it can still be pretty massive. Mm-hmm. So if we continue with the example we used around that healthcare company, some triggers could be, if a company in your focused total addressable market is researching topics like patient engagement, patient retention, or patient experience, and you can identify that through our intent solution. You can see when companies are spiking on those topics. If they're spiking in those topics, it tells me there's a good chance that they're in market and they'd like to speak with you. If they're visiting your website, that's an obvious one that you want to talk with them. Maybe they just received funding, and the first thing they did with that funding was they hired a chief experience officer for the first time. That tells me that company is focused on patient engagement, and I can promise you that chief experience officer will have a massive focus on patient engagement, and you're going to want to reach out. Or there's so many other triggers. Maybe there's a blog or a webinar where the company mentioned patient engagement. One of their executives was interviewed, and in an article it talked about patient engagement. Triggers like this, they don't just tell you that someone is in market and you should reach out to them, but it also tells you that there's likely legitimate interest there. Now that's extremely important in Europe. You're trying to determine who's in market because it's a big universe to reach out to, but also you're trying to make sure you're staying GDPR compliant when you're doing that. So those are key components. The triggers can help with, not just finding the right people to reach out to, but also staying GDPR compliant. And once you have that focused total addressable market, you understand the triggers to determine, when is the best time to reach out. You're starting to get a good go-to-market strategy in place, but how do you get that, from good to great? I think the answer becomes automation and insight. At ZoomInfo, we're using our workflow solution to prompt and automate when those triggers hit. So that healthcare company, they could determine they want to send an email when a medical practice or a hospital visits a specific page on their website. Now we can set up a workflow to automatically prompt you to do that and have that automated outreach go out. And by using our sales acceleration platform, Engage, we can then determine what's the best messaging. When they visit your pricing page and you follow up with an email, Do you get a better response if you send an email with an attachment of a customer case study, or if it includes a vidyard? Do you get a better response if you're sending that in the morning, or if you're sending that later in the day? So that you're not only are you getting those triggers, but those workflows allow it to actually flow a lot more simply.
Awesome. Okay, so when thinking beyond your current market and audience, what components of a go-to-market strategy are particularly important for revenue leaders to consider when planning their global expansion or expansion into a new market?
Yeah, that's another great question. There's so much to consider when you're expanding into new markets, and especially when it's into new countries. You know, you can't assume that you fully understand that market or that everything is going to be the same. You know, it's important to stop and listen, which sounds like an easy thing to do. It's a little bit more challenging than it sounds. You know, you get to listen to what your new employees are saying, what your prospects are saying, and what your customers are saying. And at ZoomInfo, a key to our success with any market we've broken into is, you know, taking that research, but also combining the knowledge and culture of, you know, tenured ZoomInfo employees with the new employees that we've added in that new market. So they both have, you know, really valuable knowledge to share with one another, and they become better and more successful when they work together. So our tenured ZoomInfo employees, for example, are teaching our new hires, you know, all about our company culture, which is a big differentiator for us, about our industry, about our sales process. Now, the new employees that we hire that are in that market are teaching us about cultural differences, you know, how buyers in this market like to buy, what's most important to them. And that helps our sales teams be more effective, but it also is a huge benefit for our customers and our prospects. And when you go into these new markets, you can't have these, you know, strong assumptions. You need to go in there and look to understand, you know, what the keys are. And I think for us, our conversational intelligence platform, Chorus, has been a key part of that. You know, in the past, a sales leader might say, you know, I'm hearing from my account managers that customers really want this feature, or my sales executives are telling me that we're consistently running into this specific competitor. Now, in the past, a sales leader would talk to their, you know, account managers, their account executives. They would join as many calls as they possibly could. And based on that very limited perspective, they'd think they have a good view of the whole picture and base decisions around this. Now, all those steps are really important. A sales leader gains a lot of valuable insight from that, but Chorus allows you to take it so much further. So if your account managers are telling you that a specific feature is coming up often, you can actually go in and see, are the majority of your customers asking for this feature, or is it a couple customers that are bringing it up frequently? If it's the example around, you know, a competitor, you can actually go in and run and see in our opportunities, what are the competitors that are coming up most frequently? Now, maybe you validate what that salesperson said. That competitor is coming up frequently. You look at win rate. You actually identify that you have a slightly lower win rate against that competitor. So what do you do with that information? You can take it steps further, right? You can maybe identify that there's 2 sales reps on your team that have a fantastic win rate against that competitor. And what happens is there's a specific objection that comes up that they answer in a different way. Now, if that's the case, you can then roll that out, put together a talk track and a training, roll it out to your whole sales team. Now then go in and make sure your sales reps are actually utilizing that new talk track, and are you actually seeing an improvement on the win rate? So through tools like Chorus, that conversational intelligence piece, you can get a lot smarter about how you enter these new markets.
I also think when you expand to this new market, you should take some of the criteria that are working in your existing market and look for companies that match that specific criteria. So for example, maybe you sell best to companies that use a certain software package. They use Epic in a hospital, or Salesforce CRM, or Marketo as a marketing automation system. When you go into that new market, you want to go look for companies that match that. You want to look, maybe in the US, you're really great at selling to companies that have gotten $10 million or more in funding. Great. When you expand to the UK or Europe, make sure you're looking for companies that have also raised at least $10 million in funding. And so you want to take those key characteristics about the companies that you're targeting and selling to and bring them to the new market with you.
Fantastic. Now, I believe we wanted to get into showing a little bit.
Ray has asked me to do a quick demo here, which I'm excited to show you a couple of the key pieces of the ZoomInfo platform that you can use to go to market really wherever you are. I want to start here with our websites module. And in websites, this is a great piece of technology that we've built that allows you to de-anonymize the visitors to your website. And so generally speaking, unless somebody fills out a form on your website, you actually don't know who's visited your website. And guess what? Only around 1 or 2% of people who visit your website ever actually fill out a form. And so what Websites does is it tells us all the companies that are visiting our website. And it does that automatically by using ZoomInfo's IP to company graph. So now you know all the people who visited your website who maybe didn't fill out a form or didn't make themselves known, you know, all of those companies. And so here I have a pretty robust list of the companies that visited my website. So what do I do with this? And there's a number of things to do, but what I want to do specifically is automate a process to reach out to the people who visit my website. In ZoomInfo, you do that using our workflow solution. So I'm going to click here. It says, when someone visits zoominfo.com, and I can be really specific here. I could say our pricing page or our specific solution page. Right now, I'll just keep it at the domain level. Anyone visits zoominfo.com, I'm going to say at least 5 times. Then what do I want to do? Then I want to come in here and I want to do 2 things. One, if I had set up a buying committee inside of ZoomInfo, I could easily just select that buying committee. But I haven't set that up here, but if I wanted to, I could just click here, go to the settings page. Here, I'm going to create a new persona. I can say, hey, VPs of finance or VPs of patient experience or chief experience officers. Instead of doing that, I'm just going to come back here and I'm going to create that inside of the workflow solution. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to say, look, I'm going to look for people who are chief experience officers. And then what is the company that I'm looking for? I'm going to say, look, I'm looking for just companies that are in the healthcare space, healthcare and hospitals. And I'm looking for those companies to be, in the United Kingdom. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to choose, or all of Europe. We'll choose all of Europe here. And then I'm going to come back in here to companies again. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm only really looking for companies that have at least 100 employees. 100 employees. And so now I've got this total addressable market, healthcare and hospitals, over 100 employees based in Europe, and chief experience officers. I'm going to bring them in. I'm going to also say, and look in Salesforce, make sure that they're not in there. Because if the company's in my Salesforce, then it's a company that someone's already working. So I'm just going to look for companies that aren't in Salesforce. And the action I'm going to take, I'm actually going to use Engage here. And I'm going to say, I'm going to bring that record into Engage. And inside of Engage, I'm going to bring it in as a contact. I'm going to add it directly to a sales flow. I'm just going to click here, industry-based flow. What that means is that when a record comes into, once a company visits ZoomInfo and there are at least 100 employees in hospitals and healthcare in Europe, and they're not in my Salesforce, I'm going to put them directly into a purpose-built sales flow that sends them customized content for chief experience officers of European-based hospital companies automatically. Imagine using a sales representative to do this. They would have to scour the website list. They'd have to capture the chief experience officer. They'd have to pick them up and export them into your outbound email flow. Instead, this is all automated. And then I can name the user that's going to get this too. So just like that, I've automated a motion from website visitor, who I didn't even know who those website visitors were, to capturing the chief experience officers at those at our total addressable market that visited my website, and automated a sales automation motion behind them. It's really powerful what you can do with workflows. And a lot of people, we're going to show you our intent product. And intent actually shows you when companies are researching your products and services. But the most powerful type of intent is a company visiting your website. And so taking advantage of all of those companies visiting your website, Ray talked a little bit about legitimate interest. And when someone is really interested in your products and services, that's when you reach out. That's who you want to talk to. There's nothing better than an instant follow-up to a company that's visited your website. So that's how you set up the workflows. Let's go over here into intent. What intent does here is it actually shows you companies that are researching topics related to your products or services, or specifically your products and services in real time. and allows you to run a motion behind those as well. So here I've chosen 2 topics in intent: patient engagement and patient experience. You can select anything. Cybersecurity, you can select oftentimes your competitor name. For us, sales intelligence, lead generation, HVAC maintenance. There are thousands of topics you can search from. What this does is it shows you the companies that are specifically spiking on research on these specific topics on the B2B web. So what companies are out there doing proactive research on your products and services outside of your website that you want to run a similar motion against? And so here I'm going to do the same thing. Here I see the list of all the companies that are doing significant amounts of research on patient experience and patient engagement. So what I'm going to do here is same idea. I'm going to create a workflow. I'm going to base it on streaming intent. Over here is our streaming intent motion here. So these are showing you companies that in real time are spiking on these topics. So an hour ago, Phoebe Putney Health System was spiking on patient experience. SUNY Upstate Medical University was spiking on patient experience. These are people who are in market right now doing research on these products and services. So if you sell a patient engagement or a patient experience platform or solution, there's no better time to be reaching out to these folks. But you don't want to miss an opportunity. So let's just create a workflow around it. And so what I'm going to say is, when streaming intent signals are identified for patient engagement or patient experience, same idea here. I'm going to come in here and create my my buying committee. Who are the specific people that I want to reach out to? Chief experience officers. Who are the companies? Again, we're going to choose healthcare and hospital. Healthcare and hospitals. I'm going to come down here. Healthcare services and hospitals. I'm going to say again in Europe. And then one more time, I'm going to say the company's got to have at least 100 employees. And so just like that, I've created a very tight, specific total addressable market. And then I'm going to run that same motion, not inside my Salesforce. I want to put it directly into Engage. And then inside of Engage, I want to put them directly into a sales flow that I've created specifically for companies either visiting my website or researching on a specific topic that makes sense here. And just like that, I'm going to automate every single time a company spikes on research for a particular product or service that I sell. I'm going to automate a motion to get in front of them. Now, I can do it through a sales flow motion using Engage. Through our Marketing OS platform, I can start putting display ads in front of them or Facebook ads in front of them. I can put it in a marketing automation campaign. I can alert the sales rep. I can put it in my CRM. There's all sorts of downstream workflow you can do once you zero in on the trigger that's most important to you, a website visit or intent spike. And then once you marry that trigger to your total addressable market and the key buying persona inside of that total addressable market. Now, let's say you're not going to do a trigger-based campaign. You just want to know. Every company that is in your total addressable market. What do those companies look like? And so for that, I'm going to come in here in our advanced search. I'm going to choose, follow the same example. I'm going to choose healthcare and hospital services as my industries. I'm going to choose Europe as the country that we're in. So I'm going to come down here. Choose Europe. And then I'm going to choose at least 100 employees, just like I did on that last page. And I want to know how many of these actually are there. So I'm going to come over here into companies, and here's my universe. Close to 5,000 companies. And now, great, I know all of the companies. I can move this into my CRM system. I can download this. I now know the universe of companies that I'm going after. And I'm going to go one more step here. I'm actually going to come in here and I'm going to say, you know what? Let me look at the chief experience officers at those companies. I know that I sell best to those chief experience officers. So let me take a look at them. And so I've got these chief experience officers. I'm going to come into this specific profile. I have the email address. I have a phone number. I know where they're located. I know their prior job history, so I can reach out in a really coordinated way. Here I see Angela McClure. I have the direct phone numbers. I know where she's located. I know that this company has a headquarter in Germany. That's why she's showing up, even though she's based in the US. And I can limit my search. I can say, just show me the people who are located in Europe, or just show me the people who have company headquarters in Europe. I can be really specific about my targeting here. And then finally, I've showed you intent triggers, website triggers, how to identify your total addressable market. Finally, I want to show you our scoops triggers. Scoops are projects and initiatives that we're specifically identifying at companies across the globe, where our research team, we have over 300 human researchers here who are actually going out and researching projects and initiatives that are happening at companies. I love these. I think they're the most valuable outside of your website. I think they're the most valuable pieces of intent. And so how we get these is we're interviewing someone at the company and asking them what projects and initiatives they're working on over the next 6 to 12 months. And so here, I just looked for patient experience. I'm in the Scoops tab here in ZoomInfo, and I can see that at BPL Plasma, a mid-level source said they're beginning initiatives related to patient experience in 3 months. At DVS Community Hospital, they're in the midst of patient experience initiatives. At University of Waterstrand, an internal source told us that they're experiencing challenges related to patient experience. And so these are all key triggers that we can create a workflow around, that we can get in front of our sales reps, that we can automate a motion around. When you're sitting there as a sales manager, a sales VP, a marketing leader, and you're thinking to yourself, who are the best companies that we should be reaching out to who would want to buy our products and services? If that doesn't start with people who visited our website, who are in our total addressable market, people who are researching our products and solutions who are in our total addressable market, people who have a need or a project coming up that is specifically connected to the types of products and services that we provide who are in our total addressable market, there is no better 3 things that you can be focusing on and getting in front of than those key triggers. And then if you have the ability to actually automate the workflow behind that so that nothing gets missed and it automates the sales and marketing workflow behind it, that's the holy grail of go-to-market. And we give you all of those tools, from the ability to identify the trigger, to the ability to find the key buyer in those companies, to the ability to automate the engagement using our Engage Sales Automation functionality. And then once you're creating those opportunities, our Chorus Conversation Intelligence tool lets you listen to, hear, and understand how your customers are reacting to your products and services that allows you to iterate back up to. It's an incredible suite of solutions for every go-to-market team. And we're excited to bring it to the market. Today, we work with over 25,000 customers around the globe, over half of the Fortune 500, everything from the top 10 largest companies in the world to a one-person consulting shop and everything in between. And that's because when you're going to market, these types of triggers, this type of data is becoming table stakes in your ability to grow fast, to grow efficiently, and to outflank your competitors.
That was fantastic, Henry. Thank you so much. I know the audience is going to get a lot out of that demo. As we close out here, I have a feeling some of these trends that you're gonna give us in leading into this question. But let's close out with what trends you've seen within our revenue team's successes. Any tips or tricks that our audience could take to implement quickly for maximum impact?
Go for it, Ray. Was that me or is it you?
Either or, Henry or Ray.
Yeah, so one of the things I think we've seen is, an acceleration for sales moving more digitally, right? And with that, there's more tools at sales teams' disposals today than ever before. And I think about, at ZoomInfo, where we are today versus where we were a couple of years ago. Having a platform that you have data intelligence, a sales acceleration platform, conversational intelligence all together makes a massive difference. There's a lot to teach your salespeople to make sure they're enabled to know how to utilize those tools. And when you have one platform that works naturally together, it makes it so much easier for better adoption and leads to more success.
Wonderful. Awesome. All right, we'll close out here. Thank you so much, Ray. And thank you, Henry, for the demo. That was fantastic. A lot of great information. I'm sure our audience is chomping at the bit to get access to Sales OS, Marketing OS. So definitely let us know in the Q&A chat if you have that request, and we will make sure that we have someone follow up with you as soon as possible. A recording will be sent out within 48 hours after we conclude today. But thank you all for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your day.